Hi, I'm Jason, and this is the Pattern to Print channel. And today we're finishing off the series on taking a drawing and converting it into a 3D print. So, since this is the fourth episode, if you've missed the first three, I'll have a link to the playlist below so you can catch up in case you haven't seen the other videos. Now, the first thing is so today we're going to be extruding what we did in Inkscape in OpenSCAD. And when I started off, I was talking about how we could use these techniques without knowing how to use CAD, and we're going to be using OpenSCAD, which is a CAD program. So you might be thinking, well, wait a second, what about that? So you can certainly use other programs besides OpenSCAD. Once you save your Inkscape file, it's an SVG file is the format, is the native format. And you can go on Google and there's all sorts of, if you type in SVG to STL, you'll have a list of all sorts of programs that'll be able to do it without using OpenSCAD. So why am I using OpenSCAD? Of course, first of all, it's what I use myself, so it's what I'm most experienced with. But there's a reason why I use it, even though we aren't going to be using like the CAD functionality for it. And some of those reasons are when you want to do advanced things, when you're doing multiple colors and whatnot, you need to get things very lined up and be very precise. Like for example, this is something did a couple years ago. It's sort of like a color by number that I did on one of my daughter's color by number books. And if you see, there's about 9 different colors in here. And if you did each color individually in kind of one of the default SVG to STL converters, the center of each color would be the center of just that color, and you wouldn't be able to line them up. So by using OpenSCAD, you can make sure that each color is lined up exactly where it's supposed to be. Also, other things as dimensional accuracy. Using this technique, you're going to get a print that's the same size as your drawing, and that can be very useful in a lot of cases. So that's why I use OpenSCAD. It's going to open up a lot more possibilities down the road. While it's not critical for this particular print, it can be useful. So now that we've kind of got the intro, let's get to the computer and show how it's done, taking the code that was exported in Inkscape through that extension. Here I have opened the file that the Inkscape extension created into the OpenSCAD file. And when you open it up, it kind of automatically shows a little bit of a preview. So before we go on to doing what we need to do to extrude it, I want to show some basic interface things with OpenSCAD. So the first thing is we have a button. The 3 main buttons you're going to use on this toolbar, this editor toolbar, are the preview, the render, and the create STL. So the preview simply just takes the code and gives it kind of a preview. It doesn't take usually a long time, though sometimes it looks a little strange because it's not doing all the calculations. Now, if you want to create an STL, though, you actually have to render it. So the render key will take your code and render the actual model. And then from there, once it's rendered, then you can hit the STL button and that'll export the STL. Now, again, the Inkscape has automatically created the code. So in general, there isn't much you really need to do. But there's some things that are kind of useful if you want to tweak. The first thing is that we have this height. So this was the height we put in OpenSCAD, in Inkscape. But here we can change it. So if we want it to be thicker, you can hit the preview and notice that it's thicker than it was before. Now the height where we had it before is fine, so I'll just take it back to the 6.35, which is in English scale is about 1/4 inch. The width is something they don't have to mess with. Now these path points, this is what the extension outputted, and you don't have to touch any of it. So this is what OpenSCAD uses to actually draw the shapes, but you don't need to do anything with it at all. Now here at this module point, this is where it takes these points and then extrudes them. And as we see here, we have 3 letters, and we notice that we have 3 paths. So in case, like say, we didn't want the first letter P, you can kind of comment it out. And if you render it, notice that, oh,
the T was first, sorry. You notice that we took the one letter out. Now the reason why the T was first is because it was higher. So when it renders the paths, it's kind of top to bottom, left to right. So the second one is going to be the left P, and then it can disappear. Now here, obviously, we want all of the letters, and but sometimes you want to remove certain pieces, and it's a really easy way to do it. Particularly when you want doing multicolors, oftentimes I put in reference squares, and the reference squares you want to remove. Now we can render this and extrude it and print it, but as we see, I mean the letters are kind of disconnected. So what I did is I went back and I erased the letters completely in GIMP in the original, and then I just printed a base. So here's a base model, and it's really simple to combine these two. All we need to do is take the path and copy all the way down to the where it's extruded. And then copy it. And then over here, we can just do a paste. And if we preview it now, we notice that, well, it kind of swallowed up the letters. And the reason for this is that they both have a variable called height, and they're both at the same. So we can easily solve that. I'm just going to overwrite the height variable. Actually, I need to do it down here. And that should do it. All right. So now the base is thinner than the letters. Now notice that the letters and the base are the same color, and you can see that it worked out. But sometimes you want more of a visual clue. So there's a real simple command where you just type in color, and in parentheses say, I'm just going to do blue because it's a contrast. So now when we render it, the one is a different color. Now you can really see what's the base and what's the letters. So at this point, we want to render it for real, and so I'm going to do that. And the rendering now, since there's a few things, a couple different things, it's going to take a little bit longer to render. Colors don't render, so that's why they don't see that. And now we just hit the STL and save it where we want to save it, and then we're ready to print.
All right, so now we've printed it. We have the print that's off the printer now, and it looks pretty good, considering that it was from my drawing, which isn't the best source. And one of the things I wanted to point out when I mentioned at the beginning of the video that about dimensional accuracy. So if we look at the original drawing that I did, we can see that it's the exact same size. So it retained the exact dimensional accuracy. I didn't fiddle with it at all in the slicer. So that's just sort of by default how it works. So if you have any questions about this technique, please leave questions in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer them. If you don't want to miss future episodes, please subscribe. And thanks for stopping by, and have fun printing.